You know, one of my favorite St. Nicholas Day memories was December 6th of 2015, and my youngest child was not even one yet, and we were actually out of town. We were in Edmonton, Alberta, awaiting a huge, major surgery, like life-threatening. His chances weren't even very good, and so we were in kind of the pre-op stages. He wasn't admitted yet, and we had to stay in the city close to the hospital. And so I took their little boots and I put them outside the hotel door. We were in like a suite, so we had a door between the bedroom and the main part, so we put them over there, and I filled them up with chocolate, and I think even my cousin sent some things that I could put in them that were more like St. Nicholas, like real German stuff, like a little German book and some German chocolates and stuff. So I put those all in their boots, and I just remember them coming out from the bedroom and seeing their little boots there, and we had this just lovely time of sitting on the floor and eating chocolate and spending time together, you know. And I told my kids, my oldest was only 2 at the time, so I was telling him, you know, there was a real guy named St. Nicholas, and he loved Jesus so much, and he died on December 6th, a really long time ago. So this is just something that we do, and we remember him today. And it was really special, and it was very emotional. It was a very emotional time, but that was it's definitely one of the most significant St. Nicholas Day memories for me, just because of the circumstances of the situation. Welcome to the Dwelling Logs podcast. I am Bonnie. I am a Jesus lover, farmer's wife, and second-generation homeschooling mom. That means I was homeschooled from K to 12. I have 3 kiddos, and I started Dwelling Logs to share things from my life and my heart that will encourage and help other moms and facilitate the foundational building blocks for our homes, kids, our parenting, and a heavy emphasis on homeschooling. I have finally purchased a podcast microphone so that hopefully the sound quality will be a little bit better. I'm also going to start recording my podcasts on video. So if you're catching this just on audio, hello there. If you're on YouTube, hello to you too. I'm going to try this. Excuse the messy background if you are watching on YouTube, because this is real life and that's how it is. Anyway, today I really want to talk about the season that we are in right now, which is the season of Christmas. It's December, and something on my heart right now is about Christmas traditions. And there's a few different aspects I want to look at as a mom and just as we head into the season. And so let us dive in. So a few things that we do at Christmas: we do a Jesse tree, we do St. Nicholas Day on December 6th. This year we are actually trying the Gather Round Christmas mini unit, which has been really great. We also, of course, do our Christmas Eve family things and Christmas Day. We usually have a meal still on Boxing Day. And then depending on when family come and go, maybe even our celebration heads into New Year's. So anyway, that's kind of Christmas traditions for us, things that happen every year. But I want to talk specifically about traditions as far as what we do that celebrates things like Santa Claus, or kind of more the symbolism. So in our home, Christ is the reason for Christmas. He is the real deal. He is the pinnacle. But there are other things that always come in. We do Christmas baking every year. We do caroling every year. You know, things that are maybe extra biblical, not necessarily biblical, but they're still things that happen every year, and how we incorporate them and how they are still glorifying to God in our home. So first, I do want to talk about St. Nicholas Day. I'm recording this on St. Nicholas Day, so I will probably post this next week, but this is on my heart first. So just a little bit of my background. I do come from a high German background on my dad's side, but basically my background missed out on some things in my particular home growing up. So not going back generations, but me growing up. I was born in 1988. I was born in a conservative evangelical Christian home. And one thing that my parents loved to do growing up was to tell us missionary stories, which was really great. But as I'm older and as I'm doing things and doing research and wanting to do things with my own kids, I'm realizing there's a whole whack of missionary stories that I missed out on. And that is all of the stories. Those are all the stories of the saints. And I think something, if I'm being really just honest and real here, something that happens in evangelical circles is we sort of have this subconscious fear of things that are Catholic. And it goes way back in history to when Catholic and Protestants branched off, and I think there's a little bit of just division there. And so I think that things that are very important to Catholicism and to people who celebrate Catholic things, people who are evangelical or Protestant, sometimes they just have a little bit of apprehension towards it. And so I think that sometimes when, like for myself growing up, I grew up with the assumption that people who were Catholic elevated the saints into like a superhuman. And that was not something that was directly taught to me, but that was the impression that I was raised with. So saints are not superhuman. I do not believe that Catholics believe that. On the other hand, they do celebrate them in a very, very special way. And as an evangelical growing up, it's almost like you're taught that, well, Catholics celebrate them in too special of a way. But growing up and now being in the mom position, I started reading some things on the saints. You know, we have St. Valentine, St. Patrick's Day, and St. Nicholas Day, and I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper about the true stories behind these things. And I was like, wow, these are amazing men and women of God who were missionaries. They performed miracles. Like God was in their lives in such a big way. And I all of a sudden was like, wow, I have missed out. I've missed out because of this apprehension, this weird thing, this tension that comes between just religious parts. And so I really just don't want that in itself to get in the way of what I teach my kids. I don't want some invisible fear, subconscious fear to get in the way of me teaching my kids about these awesome, great missionaries of old. And so that comes around back to St. Nicholas Day, to today. Today, we teach our kids about St. Nicholas, about all that I can dig up from history about St. Nicholas. If you are digging into the saints, you will see that some things are a little more factual, some things are a little more mysterious or, you know, legendary kind of things. So depending on what you want to teach your kids about that, if you want to just stick to the absolutely known facts, or if you want to go to the legends, you know, there's lots of different ways to do it there. But I think that the point is that as an evangelical Christian, I don't want to shy away from these amazing, amazing people. And I think that there's some things that we have lost in that separation of the church. And so that has something to do with today, with teaching St. Nicholas. I do teach my kids that St. Nicholas was a real guy. I teach him that he died. I teach him that that's where Santa comes from, like the legend of Santa started with St. Nicholas, so that they have an understanding when they see Santa and that when they see so the celebration of Santa at Christmas and the chocolates and the toys and the fun stuff, they understand that it does come from somewhere real. We don't have to completely get rid of all things Santa in our home because my kids understand where it comes from. I do have to be really careful that they don't go and spoil it for their friends and tell their friends that Santa's dead, because I don't know what other parents are going to do. But I do explain, you know, some kids, you know, their parents just make a game out of it. They think it's real. But my kids have always, always, always known St. Nicholas is dead. Santa's not real. Some people play the game and, you know, take it as that. I want to teach truth to my kids. I don't want to trick them. I love fun and games. I love pretend. I love all of that stuff. But I want to teach truth. So that is really, really important to me as a parent. So that is all about, you know, what I'm thinking through today as we're going through St. Nicholas Day and we're celebrating who the missionary was and the things that he did. We are doing the boots full of chocolate that they get to open up. I don't tell them that, oh, well, Santa came and put it in your shoe. I don't do that, you know, but I tell them why we do this on December 6th, because December 6th marks the day that St. Nicholas actually passed away. So that also leads into our Jessie tree. Now our Jessie tree, this is something that my sister actually told me about, and we started it about 3 years ago. And this is another tradition that comes down from the Catholic line, and I never even knew about it. And I think a lot of evangelicals don't know about it because, again, it's one of those things that's like, well, you know, it's celebrated a little too much, you know, a little too much emphasis on the Jessie tree, not enough emphasis on God. And so take that however you may, whatever your background is, you can apply it to how that sits with you. But I love the idea of a Jessie tree. The Jessie tree basically goes through the days before Christmas like an advent calendar, learning about the lineage of Christ. So starting with Abraham, and it talks about the creation of the world. There's different ways to do it. There's different traditions, but the way we do it, we have a book that we follow. And I love it. I love teaching my kids the lineage of Christ. I love teaching my kids the Old Testament stories and just reiterating them so that it's another opportunity to go through them, not just like the once every 3 years in Sunday school that they might go over it. So I think that it's really, really amazing, and it's one of those traditions that I've brought into my home. And these things aren't meant to be an emphasis or to be worshipped. Christ is to be worshipped. God is to be worshipped. But these are such cool things that we can bring into our home. And the point is to celebrate God, to have a better understanding of Christ. And so I think it's just great. I do find that doing this gather around Christmas this year has been awesome for my family too. We actually just did a lesson yesterday on the genealogy of Christ and why it's important and why it's good to talk about at Christmas. And so I really, so far, I'm only a few days into the mini unit, but it's been really, really good to go over as well. So yeah, it's really, really, really good. I think basically this episode is just to encourage you to teach truth to your kids, however that looks. It's not necessarily a promotion to do Santa in your home or anything like that. It's just, let's teach truth to our kids. If we have traditions, let's let them mean something, and let's let the traditions be Christ focused and God centered. And I think that is such a special and important thing to do in this Christmas season. And let's just incorporate these things that can just draw our kids to that place too. Kids are very distracted at Christmas time. They're very distracted by all the fun, and it's not bad just because they're distracted by it, or them and their immaturity, that's what they focus on. It doesn't mean we have to throw it all in the garbage. But I think that all of these little things help us draw their attention to the real meaning of Christmas. You know, it's more than just waking up Christmas morning and reading the Christmas story real quick before presents. It opens up the Christmas season to them thinking about Christmas. Something I didn't actually mention earlier in the podcast was that the weeks of Advent. Now, I haven't been very consistent on doing the weeks of Advent. That was usually something that we just let the church kind of do the weeks up to Advent. The church would always do, hope and peace and faith and love before Christmas. But I also have tried to do a little bit of that in my home, especially in my own personal life too, is just kind of remembering what Sundays are, leading up to Christmas. And especially my favorite one is Hope. We just had Hope last Sunday, and that is my favorite week because I just think about the hope that Christ is and what that really means for us. And all of these Christmas traditions are to point us to Christ, to point us to God. And I think it's really important to incorporate some form of them, something in our home, in our parenting, in our routine or traditions, to help our kids get to that place too, where they can focus on Christ in the season. It's so much more than December 25th. It's the Christmas season, and it's a really special time of year. I mean, we want to focus on God all year, that's for sure. But December, it's just like, these opportunities to just hone in on that really, really special time. So I hope this podcast was encouraging to you. I mean, this is really just kind of my world and what goes through my mind at Christmas time and what we do for parenting. And let me know, if you guys have Christmas traditions too that help your family focus on Christ. Let me know in the comments. I don't know where you're listening to this, if you're listening to the podcast or if you're watching on YouTube. Definitely share with me, because that's my goal. My goal is to create an environment where my kids can be God focused during the Christmas season. So have a fantastic homeschool week. If you're still homeschooling, maybe you're taking the break for the month. We are just about done our regular school this week, and then we're going to be continuing just with the Gather Around Homeschool Christmas unit for the rest of the Christmas season, and then maybe we'll have a couple weeks of complete break before we start up again in the new year. So it's a really nice time to just kick back and really focus on what's important right now. So have a great homeschool week, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.